Let's just say, theoretically, that you were to build this cool diorama-like piece for your D&D game. Maybe a tomb for a frozen king covered in snow effects and icicles. You know what a lot of people would probably end up focusing on when you showed it to them? The little candlesticks that you use to decorate the room. Today I'm gonna make some little candlesticks. Hey guys, welcome back to Black Magic Craft. Now I actually don't know if everybody will have focused on these because as of filming this video isn't up yet. Actually, only my Patreon supporters will have seen it, but already in just those views, people are asking about these candlesticks, and I've been asked about them many times before. Every time they make an appearance, someone asks about them, because it doesn't matter what kind of room you got in D&D, adding a couple little candelabras, candles, whatever, it really adds to the aesthetic and the ambience of the setup, just like adding real candles to your D&D game does. The answer of where did I get them or how did I make them is always really boring because they just came out of these Mantic Terrain Crates. I did 2 videos on these way back in the day, and you can check them out if you want. Really, the answer of they came in a set of things that I bought is pretty boring. So today I'm actually gonna try to make some. This is a tricky build because they're little finicky things, but I'm gonna try to make some, and I'm gonna try to do it out of regular household items that I have kicking around. I'm not gonna use green stuff. I'm not gonna implement molding and casting, no 3D printing, anything like that. Just junk drawer stuff, hopefully. This is a little bit of a simple, small build. I'm thinking, I haven't made them yet. As of filming, again, about to head out to Mace in North Carolina. Actually, when this video launches, I will have landed and be in North Carolina for Mace. So if you're around on that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you're at the convention, make sure you come say hi to me. I'd love to meet you. Time to figure out how I'm gonna make these. So looking at these ones from Mantic, they're pretty simple, but it's their simplicity that makes them difficult to build because they're small and skinny and have fine details, hard to craft. But they do have some downsides. I mean, they are made of flexible plastic and they like to bend, which does not look very great. Also, this base here, it didn't come with it. It was only on these little feet, and there's no way those are staying standing on the table, so I had to compromise already and put this bigger base on. But I think I can replicate these, sort of. I'm not gonna get all the little details like the twisted metal or these little bumps, but I think we can get something that works here. Toothpicks are going to be my candlestick shaft. They're the right size, and they're nice and sturdy. Before the actual candle itself, I need something a little bit thicker. I could just use hot glue on this. I don't think my skills are good enough to make that look neat and tidy, so I have an idea. The humble cotton swab. So these are cotton swabs that I get at the dollar store, and they have a plastic tube on them rather than a paper one like Q-tip makes. So these I think are perfect. They're hollow. All I'm gonna do is cut a little tiny length of this, trying not to bend it in the process, because that is about the right size for a candle. Now, what should work is placing this right on here, and ta-da, we have a little bit of candle. And actually, I'm poking this toothpick even farther up here so it pokes out a little bit, and that'll help me with making the flame. Nothing fancy or expensive. This is literally dollar store super glue. That on its own, kind of boring. We need a base, something to make this look a little bit better. Enter the collection of bits. I highly suggest that anyone doing tabletop crafting go to their local craft store and buy some of those big packs of assorted beads, the kind that have different shapes in them, because these sorts of things are really handy. I want to try to replicate this little base here that's actually holding the candle. It's like a little plate. Looking through my beads here, I don't think I have anything quite small enough. This is about the smallest one that I have. Doesn't fit on the toothpick. I actually wonder if I can cut this in half. That bead cut in half would be good, but cutting that in half, this is hard plastic. It's not gonna work very well. I also have these tiny little gears. Could work well to act as the bottom of a candle. That's pretty good. I like that. The hole on it is a little too big. Just glue it in place. have to kind of let it hang, hopefully just stiffen up. If you have some accelerant, you can use it or just wait a little bit. I'm going to use accelerant because I have it. It's not bad. It's a little bit off center because the hole was too small, like I said, but that'll do. Try to find a bead that won't look too strange. These are kind of cool if you want it to look like an urn. Something like that would be pretty neat. Again, if you want it to just look like a candle vase urn sort of thing. I don't know the right word for that, but I need something as a base. I want to try to mimic this look, but I don't think I can do the feet. This one's not bad. That's actually quite good as a base, but I really need to split this. I'm gonna see if I can cut this into two, get rid of this bottom part. This is just a really, really cheap vise to help hold this while I try to cut it. I don't know if this is gonna work. Again, cheap razor saw. This plastic is very hard plastic on these beads, so it's difficult to cut without exploding it. Now, I'm making this out of the beads that I have on hand, but if you are planning to do these, you could actually go to the craft store and look for beads that are most appropriate so you don't have to mess around with them like I am here. This kind of sucks to cut through like this, and I could use a Dremel, but I'm trying to keep this as budget as possible. And also a Dremel would probably melt this plastic. Cutting through this type of plastic with a cut it off wheel sometimes just melts it. Doesn't hold it very well, a little too slippery. Let's try a little bit of blue tack. I gotta be careful not to tighten this too much, otherwise I'll just crush this bead. I don't want that. Okay, finally got them apart without shattering them. Just to flatten them out, because my cut's not very good, I'm just gonna sand them a little bit on a nail file. If you wanted to make a bunch of these, it might be actually worth molding and casting them in something else rather than going through that every time. But if you just want to make a couple, or you got a lot of time on your hands, this will do perfectly fine. A little bit of super glue, and that's that. Honestly, not too bad already. So let's get this on a base and then make the wax. Now these bases here are ones that I have saved from the WizKids minis. They come with these really thin, flat bases that I don't actually like for miniatures, but they're perfect for something like this where I want the bases to be as minimal as possible. Don't have any of these, or you want to keep it really cheap, there's a lot of things you can do. A coin, like a nickel, would be perfectly fine. A penny might be too small. Quarter, but I mean, that costs 25 cents. Bingo chips, metal washers, there's all sorts of things you can use for these. I'm gonna use a bit of accelerant. Again, you don't have to do this. And place it as close to the middle as possible. The accelerant just makes that set up really quickly and actually harden a lot better. I did not get that centered at all. Kind of messed that up. In fact, this whole thing is sitting kind of cockeyed. I don't really like what's happening here. Oh, super glue and accelerant is quite strong. I need to get the bottom of this a little bit more flat because it's making it sit crooked. Level it out a bit. Can't seem to get it perfectly straight. I think the hole through the bead is actually angled, but that'll do. This is looking not too shabby. We just got to add a little bit of dripping wax. So with the glue gun, with very minimal pressure, barely letting out any glue, just basically letting out a tiny, tiny dab of glue, and then using the hot tip to kind of tease it down. Add a little bit at the bottom. I think I added too much there, but you get the idea. Now I can make several different varieties of these with different beads as the bottom, and then paint them up. All right, all primed up in black. Now it's just time to paint these out with some metallics. It's important to paint the metallics first and then the actual candles last so that you can paint some of those wax strips. I often have an inclination to paint metallics in a silver or gunmetal because it works really well and it's easy to paint. But for this sort of thing, I prefer using like a brass or a gold. And my main reason for this is that a lot of dungeon terrain and stuff like that for tabletop gaming tends to be pretty gray. We work with a lot of stone. When you paint out little tiny dungeon props in a metallic gray or silver, it doesn't really stand out on top of your gray stone dungeon tiles. Painting them gold or brass or something similar, just gonna make them pop a little bit more. And I'm just attempting to use this Vallejo Model Air airbrush paint, which works really good on a lot of things, and I'm realizing instantly it's way too thin for this purpose. It works great for airbrushing and brushing on small details, but not so good here. So let's get back into cheap territory and just use some craft paint. It's thicker and will cover better on these pieces. Plus it better sticks with my idea to make these out of nothing special. The hardest part about these are the bases because they're these big, flat, round pieces. They don't really look great and, you know, there's no texture on them, no detail, and it's kind of tricky because what are you going to put on it that's appropriate texture? With a lot of things you can put like gravel or sand or something like that, but with candelabras, I don't really think you want that unless all of these are going to be seated outdoors or in a cave. If you want these on a castle floor, why would there be a bunch of rubble on the bottom? So you kind of just got to accept the flat base and do the best you can while painting them. Now that the metallics have dried, I'm going to put a wash on these. There's not a lot of details for the wash to pick up, a lot of smooth areas, but I'm going to put some on nonetheless. I'm just going to use some of my homemade black wash. If you need the recipe, click the video link up there. On metallics, especially gold, a red wash or like a flesh shade wash can actually look really amazing. If you want these to look more regal and expensive, something in like a king's chamber that truly looks gold, I would suggest using a flesh wash versus black. But I want these to look more like they were in an old dungeon or castle or something like that. Something that could fit in a crypt, so I'm just using black so that it looks nice and dirty. The tricky part are these smooth bases. It's really hard to get wash looking good on smooth bases and smooth surfaces. And I just gotta take some time to kind of dab off the excess and avoid any big blobs or puddles. You know what, looking at these as the wash is drying, I really don't like these smooth bases. It kind of looked okay on this one I did, I think because of the feet, but somehow, I don't know, these ones just look a little funny. I think I am going to add some texture to the bottom and just make it look like sand, which doesn't make sense in some settings. It'll make the piece look better. I'm going to use some Vallejo texture paste. You don't have to use something like this. You can just use some glue and fine sand or some caulking or basically anything to add texture, but this stuff is really quick drying, which is why I want to use it here. I'm not going to put a ton on. Don't want these looking like they're in a huge mound of earth, just like maybe they're sitting on a textured stone floor. Hopefully I don't regret this decision. Now just a little bit of dry brushing with a true bright gold. This isn't going to be a huge effect. It's just going to kind of bring back some of the edge highlights to make them stand out a little bit. I'm going to use a vanilla, kind of off-white instead of a bright white. The bright white will just look a little bit strange, I believe. And it's just a matter of painting out the candle itself and any wax that has dripped. So any hot glue has dripped down into little blobs, either intentionally or unintentionally, can be turned into drips of candle wax. And you can add a little bit on the base if you want to give it some dimension. When it comes to the hot glue drips, some will look better than others. Like here, doesn't look too great. But over here, I think this looks pretty good. Just take some practice, and if you do a bunch of these, you'll end up probably getting a pretty good feel for it. If you find these candles to be too bright white, like I do, that is easily fixed with a little bit of a sepia wash. Now you don't have to use Citadel wash because it's, you know, a little expensive. And if you're working on the cheap, just really, really, really water down some brown paint or some ink. But applying a little bit of this sepia wash will give the candle wax a nice aged look that I think is a little bit more appropriate for a dungeon setting. Again, you don't have to do this. It's a matter of taste. Personally, I like this kind of yellowed candle look better than the bright white. The flames themselves are super simple. You just want to go in with some yellow first and paint this little wick here. And then take a tiny bit of orange and just do the tips. And you can kind of blend that together. Then it's just a matter of maybe painting out this base to look like stone gray or something like that. And the quick little crafty candles are complete. This isn't the most impressive of builds, but I kind of love how it's reminiscent of some of the early projects on this channel. Just a little crafty build. The perfect kind of thing to make in between larger projects or while you wait for things to dry. These could be used as easy scatter to quickly populate your dungeon tiles, or you could just take the candle portion and use them while decorating mini tables, bookcases, or other things like that. I hope you liked this video. If you did, hit the like button and let me know in the comments section. And if you're new around here, hit subscribe to keep up with my videos. I put one up every single Friday. If you're looking for some info on the tools or supplies that I use, check out blackmagiccraft.ca. I've got a whole essential equipment page dedicated to listing the things that I use. And if you want to help me keep putting out these videos every week, the best way you can do that is by supporting the channel on Patreon. The production time of these videos is funded in large part by viewers who enjoy what I do and want to help me keep doing it. That's it for this week, guys. See you again next Friday. Cheers.